Hi friends, it's Valerie. Welcome back to my channel and welcome back to this week's What's for Dinner. If you are new here, I would love if you would hit that subscribe button and join my YouTube family. And don't forget to leave a like or a comment down below because it really does help my channel. I had to skip last week's What's for Dinner because I was super sick with the flu. I don't know, like I never get sick. Like it's been 5 years since I've been sick, but that took me out. I was 3 days of straight, like you couldn't move me. I was in bed sleeping like 16 hours a day, and after that 3 initial days, like I was a little bit more mobile, but still not feeling good for the rest of the week. But I am back feeling great. It's been a week though because Charlie also got sick with the flu after me, and now as you're like the day this is coming out, like I'm recording this the night before, so Sunday night, he has been in the hospital and he's gonna probably have his gallbladder removed, so it's just gonna be a little bit of a different situation when it comes to food for the next, I'm not sure, maybe 2 to 3 weeks. My meals, I'm not sure how they're gonna look. I just know that I am gonna have to change some things up for him. I don't know if that's gonna mean different meals for each of us or what, but I'm hoping not, because that's more work, and I'm just gonna have to like make do on the channel. Either way, keep him in your thoughts and prayers, please, because I'm a fraidy cat. Like honestly, when it comes to medical things for me, pain, needles, just like surgery, any of that stuff, I am like a little baby. I get so afraid of all those things. I always have been super afraid. I avoid anything like that at all costs. Like it scares me. It's like instant anxiety. So even though this isn't really happening to me personally, you know, having someone you care about like hurting or about to have surgery is still very scary. Still brings all the anxiety on. So yeah, just keep them in your thoughts for me if you don't mind. Dinners this week, I tried to show you just like what I've got, but I also, another situation I'm in right now is that we've had the car in the shop for over a month now. He was in a small accident, but was getting the cosmetic repair done on a door. They had him bring the car in, but they still haven't fixed it. Like they're waiting on the part. Why they had him bring the car in that early when they didn't have the part makes no sense to me, but still waiting on that. That means no grocery shopping. I kept waiting, think like, oh, it's gonna be any minute I'm gonna get to go grocery shopping, but I haven't. So I haven't gone grocery shopping in like a month, but I do have Sam's Club across the street for me, so I can get some things there, but a lot of it's bulk, you know, and I don't really need that. I don't need that for most things. So it's working for me. Like for now, I'm gonna probably have to do like some kind of online ordering of groceries here if something doesn't resolve itself very quickly. But that might affect also like what you see meal wise. Just want to give you guys a heads up, so if you're wondering why things might seem a little bit off, it's one, because of grocery shopping, and two, will coming up over the next couple weeks will be because of his whole gallbladder situation. So other than that, I think that's all I had to say. Sorry this was so chatty. I just feel like there's so much I need to tell you guys right now. There's even more than that, like so much has gone on in life, but I'm gonna leave it at that, and we can talk some more later, but let's just get started. Okay, so I'm starting this recipe off by making the marinade for the skirt steak. So to a bowl, I'm combining a half a cup of soy sauce with about 2 cloves of minced garlic, 1 tablespoon of minced ginger. You can use fresh if that's what you have as well. 2 tablespoons of light brown sugar that's been packed in that, and then about 2 tablespoons of honey. I pulled this recipe off of a TikTok recipe, so I just screenshotted it really quick in a moment, so it's kind of blurry, but I believe it was a half a tablespoon of sriracha. You can add more or less to your liking. And then I didn't check the weight of my skirt steak, but I believe it was at least a pound, but I think it was more than that. The recipe looks like it called for, it says 4 10-ounce skirt steaks. Obviously I just used what I had on hand. I think whatever like size that I have here, I could have got away with putting like 1 more in that marinade, and I wouldn't have stretched it any thinner than that. I went ahead and placed a lid on the bowl. It's not pictured here, but you can also of course do this in a Ziploc bag with all your marinade and meat, and I refrigerated that to marinate it for a little over an hour. You can do anywhere from an hour to 8 hours, that's your choice. I just did whatever worked for me time wise. Now, I couldn't read the exact cooking instructions from the Ninja Foodie cookbook screenshot that I had taken, so I just looked up a different recipe using the Ninja Foodie still for a steak, and I will link that. It's got its own marinade recipe in that recipe that I'll have linked as well, so if you want to try a different one, you can check that out. But I did put that at grill function on high heat, which is about 500 degrees, and I put it for 8 to 10 minutes, flipping halfway through. And this is what it looked like after. I definitely liked all those little charred bits. I really think those hold a lot of flavor. That teriyaki glaze is definitely going to, bubble up and caramelize on the grill. It wasn't a big problem for me, but I can see that being maybe a problem for some. This is a non-stick grill, so it's pretty easy to clean up afterwards, but I just wanted to point that out. And I'm not working with many fresh vegetables right now, as I mentioned, but I did have these green beans in the freezer, so I decided to use them up. I've just placed them in a pan to let them go ahead and warm up. I've also taken the teriyaki marinade and placed it in a pot on a simmer so that I can cook off because of the fact that I had the raw meat in it. I do want to cook that off and make sure it comes to a nice temperature, make sure it's all safe, but I want to use that marinade as a glaze. And I've also added in some butter to the green beans, as well as some of the Kinder's The Blend, which is just salt, pepper, and garlic powder basically, just to give those some flavor. I went ahead and served the skirt steak over some white rice. I thought that would complement it very well because of the teriyaki flavor of it all, and it did. Now, I don't normally even eat skirt steak very often, so this was different to me, and I did enjoy it a lot. I'm just used to, like, if I'm going to have a steak or red meat like that, I'm going to have, like, a ribeye or filet mignon, something like that, versus having it on the sweeter side, but I still really did enjoy this a lot, and it paired really well with those green beans. Thankfully, we love these Marie Callender's pot pies. I love the chicken ones because this was convenient for me to be able to grab across the street at Sam's Club since I haven't been able to go grocery shopping. But these are on instant savings through the 23rd of November for a great price of like $9.98, and you get 8 of them in the box. So that's like $1.25 per pie. That's a great price, makes multiple meals for us. I just served this with a side garden salad, and really simple, just that garden salad, and it just had to make do with what we got right now, but this was still delicious because we love pot pies. I am using my instant brand Dutch oven for this, and I'm taking 1 pound of ground beef. This is 80/20 ground beef, so I didn't even use the tablespoon of olive oil that they recommend putting in there to start off with. I just skipped the oil part. I just broke that meat up with my meat chopping tool. Now I have this over medium-high heat, which is about 400 to 425 degrees Fahrenheit, if that helps you if you're using one of these instant Dutch ovens. I'm also seasoning the beef with some salt and pepper to taste. I'm not removing the meat from the pan like they say to do in the recipe that I'll have linked, just because I didn't want another dirty dish. I found it unnecessary. I just added in my diced up large yellow onion into that. I didn't add the additional tablespoon of oil for the onion either. I just the grease from the beef was fine for it. I just cooked that a little bit for a couple minutes till it was translucent. Then I added in about 5 cloves of garlic or so that were minced up. I cooked that for an additional like 30 seconds. And then I'm adding in 4.5 cups of chicken broth. It calls for low sodium. I used regular because I like the flavor better. And then I am seasoning that with 1 3/4 teaspoon of dried basil, 3/4 teaspoon of dried oregano, half a teaspoon of dried rosemary that I had to crush up because I had whole rosemary, and then a half a teaspoon of dried thyme, and I am stirring that all together just to get those seasonings mixed in there. The tomato paste that this calls for is about 2.5 tablespoons worth. Now I keep frozen tomato paste in the freezer, like from leftover cans, so I just kind of like estimated, defrosted that. You see me putting that in, as well as 2 cans of diced tomatoes. I get these from Aldi. They have like basil, oregano already in them, like flavored with that, so I like to use them for dishes like this that will complement that. And I'm using 2 because I didn't have 1 can of crushed tomatoes, but it would have been 1 can of the diced tomatoes and 1 can of crushed tomatoes, but it worked out just fine. And then season that with any additional salt and pepper that you'd like. I gave that a good stir, and you're just going to bring that to a boil and then reduce the heat to medium-low, cover, and let that simmer for about 20 minutes. And while that's simmering, you can prepare your broken up lasagna noodles. I do that separately, and I'll get to that in a bit here. But once the soup was done, I decided to add some spinach in because I had some fresh spinach I needed to use up. Plus, I just wanted the additional vegetable in that. Sometimes I like to add zucchini in it as well, but spinach is what I had. It doesn't call for it in the recipe. I just like to add it to my preference. Now, the cheese part of this is a must for me. So to a bowl, I'm combining 1¼ cups of shredded mozzarella cheese with about 8 ounces of ricotta cheese, as well as a ½ cup of finely grated Parmesan cheese. And then I just work that all together to combine it all. And if I had some fresh parsley, I would have added that in here at this time, but I didn't have any. So here's my noodles. The situation with this is that I don't like it like in the whole soup for leftovers. I like to add it to the soup as I make it. So I just made a small amount that was going to be for us for that night, and I can make like additional like noodles for the leftovers like the next day. Yeah, so that's just a preference for me because I just don't like the texture that they become like when they sit in the soup. Y'all, I love lasagna soup like so much. It's like so delicious. I love lasagna in general, but a good soup version of it, making it nice and brothy. You can always add additional broth if that's what you like as well. You could even cook the noodles in the soup itself. I've seen people do that with like the oven ready noodles or any kind of lasagna noodle. You just have to add additional broth if you would like to do that. And then of course I top that with that nice yummy ricotta cheese. When you mix it in, it gets all nice and melty. And I also had some nice garlic bread on the side. So on this night, we had actually seen a commercial for KFC, and we don't normally ever have it at all. In fact, every time I have it, I'm not like as satisfied as I think I'm going to be. But I was really, really craving their coleslaw, like a lot. I love their coleslaw. So Charlie actually saw the commercial too, and he was like, oh, KFC sounds amazing. And I was like, I actually had a dream in the night about the coleslaw. So I was like, it's a sign. We have to go get it. So we went and grabbed that. I just got one of their meal deals, something like that, like a family meal. It just comes like 2 sides. We chose coleslaw and mashed potatoes. I also love their mashed potatoes and gravy, and then just their fried chicken, and gotta love their biscuits as well. I typically like them with like butter and honey, but you don't see that pictured here. But all in all, it was very delicious and it satisfied the craving. I'm starting this off by taking a large oven-safe skillet over medium heat. I'm adding about 2 teaspoons of olive oil to that. Then I have sliced up 3 green onions nice and thin. I'm adding that into the skillet, as well as a teaspoon of chili powder, a ½ teaspoon each of ground cumin, garlic powder, and dried oregano. And I am just going to stir that together in the oil, get the seasonings and the green onions just to saute for just a couple of minutes. Then I'm adding in shredded chicken. I just did this in the Instant Pot. You can also use just like whatever you have on hand, like rotisserie chicken. About 2 cups of that added in, as well as 8 ounces of diced green chilies, a 14-ounce can of fire roasted tomatoes that I went ahead and drained. I'm using a can of corn. It calls for ½ cup. I just used the whole can. I know that we love corn. They use frozen as well. I just used canned. And then I'm adding in the rice. It's about 2 cups that it calls for. It calls for brown rice. I used white. And then some green enchilada sauce, about 3/4 cup of that. I keep some of that frozen. Like once I open a larger can, I keep the rest frozen. So I just kind of estimated what I was putting in there, so about 3/4 cup, and I'm just stirring that all together to get it nice and combined, get it nice and warmed through. And then I added in about 1/4 cup of shredded cheddar cheese. I stirred that in. We're gonna go ahead and let that like melt for just maybe a couple minutes, however long it takes for you, and then turn the heat off and stir in some. I'm stirring in sour cream. So the recipe calls for Greek yogurt, but I'm using sour cream. So I'm using a ½ cup of that, just stirring that to get it all nice and combined together. Then I'm topping it with cheese. It calls for another 1/4 cup. I'm just kind of eyeing it and covering it with whatever amount of cheese I've got there. And then I'm baking that at 350 degrees Fahrenheit for about 15 minutes or until your cheese is melted. Now this night my oven actually went out. It didn't go out in the sense of like stopped working, like shut off. It went out in the sense that it started overheating. Like the temperature was insanely hot, and had I not just happened to check on this about 5 minutes sooner than the recipe called for at 15 minutes, I think I checked it at 10 minutes, this would have been burnt. So thankfully I was able to save it because it was a very delicious meal. I enjoyed it a lot. Like, it was super good. And I added some additional sour cream on top of that, and I just served this with a side Caesar salad because it's just what I had on hand. Thanks so much for watching, friends. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and that little bell so you don't miss out on any future videos, and I hope you all have a great week.